Do not think that hypodermis is a specific region of the skin. Take note that it is only divided into two distinct regions, and you will know why later. That is your epidermis, which is the superficial portion, and the dermis, which is the deeper portion. And if you would look at your epidermis, it's mainly made up of epithelium, while the dermis, more of connective tissue. So this is just a representation of how the skin would look like with the following distinct regions, which are your epidermis and your dermis. So later on, when we discuss dermis, we will further discuss the specific layers of the dermis. So histologically or microscopically, this is how you are able to appreciate the skin. So this is a thick skin using an H&E, and here labeled your epidermis and your dermis. So this is the area of your hypodermis. So it's not part of the distinctive region. Okay, so you only take note two distinct region, epidermis and your dermis. So we go just a brief for hypodermis. It's actually a subcutaneous layer. It's also made up of a connective tissue, specifically an areolar type of connective tissue and some of your adipose tissue. And it's considered to be a portion of the superficial fascia. So we go with the first region, your epidermis. So in general, the type of epithelium that lines the epidermis is your stratified squamous keratinizing epithelium. So basically, we call this the cells that comprises the epidermis as keratinocytes. But mind you, apart from keratinocytes, there are also other abundant epidermal cells, like your Langerhans cells, your melanocytes, and your Merkel cells, which we will all be discussing later in the next few slides. So epidermis may consist of either 4 or 5 layers because there are two types of skin. You have the thick and the thin. So thin will basically comprise 4 layers, while your thick skin will contain 5 layers. So looking at the picture on the other side of the PowerPoint, we go from deepest to the most superficial. So we start first with basale, otherwise known as your germinativum, your spinosum or the prickle cell layer, then your granulosum, your lucidum, which will only be present in what? Thick or thin skin? Huh? Thick skin. And then your stratum corneum. Okay, so again, remember, when we are referring to thin skin, 4 layers. Thick, 5 layers, which mainly will add up your stratum lucidum. Okay? So, just the point of comparison, this is how the skin would look like histologically and a good representation of the gross appearance of the skin. Now, we go first stratum basale. So, from the keyword basale, so it gives you an idea that this is made up of basal cells. And when we refer to basal cells, automatically we associate it as stem cells. Okay? For the epidermis. So meaning, proliferation of renewal of your epithelium basically takes place in the stratum basale. And it will happen every 15 to 30 days. I'm also emphasizing here that the cells are mainly described as basophilic columnar to cuboidal cells. And they are the ones resting on the basement membrane. So if you go back histology or basic wise, you remember that there are certain proteins responsible for the attachment of cells. And these proteins are otherwise known as what? Starts with letter I. Intercellular junctions. Okay, so there are a lot of intercellular junctions. And to emphasize some, you have your desmosomes and your hemidesmosome. So how are you going to differentiate the two? Okay, let's try to identify this one. Is this desmosome or hemidesmosome?
Desmosome.
So what will be the definition of your desmosome? The one responsible for the attachment of cells to each other. Okay? So if this is your desmosome, definitely this will be your hemidesmosome. So it is the one responsible for the attachment of cells to the basement membrane. This is very important because when you go pathology, there are certain malignancies wherein it disrupts the ability of cells to attach with each other. Therefore, you see some isolates of your malignant cells. So you really have to take note. Your desmosomes and your hemidesmosomes. So again, these are otherwise known as your intercellular junctions or your adhesion proteins. I'm emphasizing this one because there is this particular layer of your epidermis wherein it will highlight your desmosomes. And this is your stratum spinosum, otherwise known as your prickle cell layer. Again, emphasizing, they try to describe this layer, cells that are cuboidal or slightly flattened with a central nucleus. So for the specifics, these layers contains a lot of desmosomes. And you already know that when we pertain to desmosomes, these are the intercellular junctions attaching one cell to the other. So it anchors the cell to each other. And basically, they will also contain thick tufts of your intermediate filaments. Now, all tissues will undergo fixation. And one common consequence when you do fixate your cells is that cells will tend to shrink. They go small. Okay? So, these desmosomes tends to become highlighted specifically in your stratum spinosum. When you say prickle, what comes into your mind? Formation of spines. Okay? Formation of spines. So the desmosomes tend to show you spiny cells. Okay? Looks like prickle or spines. Hence the name prickle cell. So just to highlight that white layer of border that you see around your cells, those are your desmosomes or your intercellular junctions that tends to become spiny when the tissue undergoes fixation. Okay, here. These are very good examples of the description of a prickle cell. Okay? And another thing, you have here your Langerhans cells, which are mainly located in your stratum spinosum. So take note, your Langerhans cells are otherwise or generally known as what? What is the cell of origin of your Langerhans cells? If it's still in the blood circulation, they are known as monocytes. Monocytes tend to have a lifespan of how long in the blood circulation? 1 day to 3 days. Okay? Why? They do not stay long in the circulation because what happens to the monocyte? They go outside the circulation to become what? Do we still call it monocyte when they are already outside the circulation? They are now known as macrophages. And macrophages, specific tissue, have specific names. And for the skin, those are known as Langerhans cells. And what is the main function of Langerhans cells? Phagocytic cells. Okay? So they are mainly found in the stratum spinosum. Now we go with the next layer, that is your granulosome. So your granulosome will contain around 3 to 5 layers of flattened cells. Again, emphasizing how the cells are being described in each layer. So, for granulosum, from the word granulosum, what will be highlighted here are different types of granules, specifically your keratohyalin granules and your lamellar granule or lamellar bodies. So your keratohyalin granules, these are granules containing a specific type of protein known as your filaggrin. And this filaggrin will cross-link with your keratin filaments. Formation of keratohyalin granules plus keratin filaments will therefore produce your soft keratin, the ones responsible for the keratinization. Okay? So it will need two components, your keratohyalin granules and your keratin filaments in order to form your soft keratin. I want to emphasize soft keratin because you also have your hard keratin. Where do you see your hard keratin? Nails. Okay? When we refer to skin, we describe the keratin as more of the softer side. Okay? Soft keratin. And we also have our lamellar granules, otherwise known as lamellar bodies. Okay? So this one, they are more responsible in secreting lipid material. So when they release lipid material, it helps in waterproofing the skin. Okay? So these two particular granules, they have two different functions. So your keratohyalin granules will be more in the formation of your soft keratin, while your lamellar granules or bodies will be the one functioning for the waterproofing of the skin. Okay? So, those are the things that I have just mentioned a while ago. So you just take note of that one. Again, two important granules present in your granulosum will be your keratohyalin granules and your lamellar granules, or otherwise known as your lamellar bodies. Now we go with stratum lucidum. So again, emphasizing, you are only able to appreciate lucidum when we are pertaining to thick skin. And what are very good examples of thick skin? We have our palms, and we also have soles. Okay? So, highlighted microscopically for lucidum is that it now lacks the nucleus or nuclei. Absence of the nucleus or nuclei. What other layer has absence of the nuclei? Hala. Ha? It's actually the stratum corneum. Okay? Stratum corneum. So it also lacks the organelles, and actually, this layer is considered dead, same as your stratum corneum. Okay? You always take note when we refer to cells, if you are still able to appreciate nuclei, definitely those cells remain viable. When the nucleus is no longer appreciated, then you're starting to think that it's dead or it's undergoing necrosis. Okay, so it's no longer viable. Okay? It's also thin, translucent, and barely visible. But in this particular slide, you can actually distinguish this lucidum against your corneum. I want to emphasize absence of the nucleus for both lucidum and your corneum, because when you go pathology, when cells in the skin tends to become or having problems, they retain the nucleus in the corneum, which is abnormal. Okay? So that is one distinguishing factor that you go pathologic already when you see nucleus occupying the corneum. Okay? Because histologically, you should not be able to appreciate any nuclei in the corneum. So remember, lucidum, translucent. Okay? That's your keyword there. Translucent. Stratum lucidum. Now, the outermost layer or the most superficial layer of the skin is your stratum corneum. So it's actually made up of 20 to 30 cells, flattened, again, non-nucleated, heavily keratinized cells. Okay? Just good to know at this point in time, when we refer to nucleus contained in the corneum, the term there is parakeratosis. Okay? Now, cytoplasm is filled with keratin filament, and basically this is the layer of the skin that is being shed off or continuously being desquamated, replaced by new cells arising from what layer? The basale, which contains our stem cells, okay, of the skin. So question, if I ask you, what is the thickest layer of the epidermis?
Corneum.
Corneum. Next question. What is the thickest viable layer of the epithelium? Huh? Oh, you have 5 options. Multiple choice. Huh? Spinoso. Okay? So you take note how you read the questions. When you say just thick skin, it's really corneum, 20 to 30 layers. But when we refer to viable layer of the skin, when I say viable, nucleus also should be appreciated in that layer. So that is your spinosum. Okay? So in summary, again, these are the different layers of the epidermis and their main description. So I will not read that anymore now. You just kindly take note. Another table showing you of how you are going to differentiate your thin from your thick skin based on the following structures. So do not neglect familiarizing yourselves looking at this table because there might be questions asked. Okay? So this is how your thin skin, absence of what? Stratum lucidum against your thick skin, wherein your stratum lucidum will be appreciated. Barely visible. So translucent. Lucidum. Okay? Letter A, thick or thin skin? Thick or thin? Thin. So B will represent thick skin. Okay? So as I have mentioned, there are other epidermal cells found in the skin apart from your keratinocytes. The ones pointed there are known as your melanocytes. So from the word melano, melanin-producing cells of the skin. And their main location will be in the stratum basale, otherwise known as what? Germinativum. And they are described as cells containing a clear appearance cytoplasm. Question. Greatest amount of melanin is usually seen in A, melanocytes, or B, keratinocytes. Huh? There's no C. A and B only. Huh? Answer A or B? B? A? Eiler will not accept 2 answers. Only 1. Huh? Final? A? Okay. Although melanocytes are the ones responsible for the production of melanin, take note, your keratinocytes will contain the greatest amount of melanin via the transfer of your melanocytes. Okay? That is why it's very common to describe your melanocytes with clear appearance of the cytoplasm because they will have minimal amounts of this melanin pigment. Okay, so the answer there is keratinocytes. Okay, Let's try to identify the boxes with the orange color. What do you think are those? Are those keratinocytes or are those melanocytes? Huh? Keratinocytes. Very good. So, the other one with the green box represented by your melanocyte. So later, if you look at the slides, you try to differentiate these two particular structures or cells. Okay? Based on how they are being described microscopically. Okay, let's practice. Identify number 1. Number 2. And then number 3. Keratin. Okay? Remember, also, I want to add up, keratin is not only a protein that will have a function in the protection of the outer layer of the skin. When you go pathology, keratin will play an important role in the diagnosis of certain cancers. In particular, squamous cell carcinoma. Okay? So, there's so many functions of your keratin. Okay? So, the next epidermal cell, we have our Langerhans cells. As I have mentioned, the cell of origin came from monocyte. Monocyte in the circulation will stay in around 1 to 3 days. After 3 days, it will need to exit the circulation and will go to a specific type of tissue. And when we refer to skin, we call them Langerhans cells. Okay, so their main function is to phagocytose and at the same time, antigen presentation. Okay, for immune response. Now, these are very good examples. The ones pointed by the red arrows are examples of your Langerhans cells. I'm giving everybody a heads up. Later, when you try to look at the slides, it's very difficult to actually appreciate the Langerhans cells. But you just have to take note that your Langerhans cells are mainly located in what layer again of the epidermis? It's in the spinosum. So, Langerhans cells are microscopically described as irregularly lobulated nuclei with almost clear cytoplasm. Okay, let's practice. Identify letter B. Melanocytes, question mark? Melanocytes. And then your A? Langerhans cells. So let's review our layers of the skin. We start with C.
Basale. Spinosum.
Wait lang ha. Kalimutan ko, meron pala ito. Okay, next layer. E.
Spino. Granulose.
And?
Corny.
So, is this a thick or thin skin? Thin skin. Perfect na. And then the next one, Merkel cells. So, these are mechanoreceptors. Specifically, light touch sensation. Main location is in the basal layer. And abundant fingertips. Okay? So we go now dermis. So it's thicker than the epidermis and it's divided into 2 sublayers. You have your papillary and your reticular layer. So to emphasize it more, this is the microscopic histologic picture of the dermis. So again, it's divided into 2 portions. Papillary and your reticular dermis. So what do you think is the composition of papillary layer? What type of connective tissue is papillary layer made up of? Because you have a lot of connective tissue. What type? Dense, dense regular, dense irregular, loose, areolar, what? Loose what? Areolar, connective tissue. So if in the exam, it's way more acceptable to say areolar connective tissue. But then you can also write loose areolar connective tissue. Okay, either. So conical projections into the epidermis called dermal papillae. Okay, so this area over here. Okay. While the reticular layer, what do you think type of connective tissue makes up the reticular layer? Is it still the same also, areolar connective tissue? Dense, irregular? Okay. Dense, irregular connective tissue. Because the main function of your reticular is more of toughness and strength of the skin. Okay, so it's thicker than your papillary. So if you look at this picture, are we able to delineate our papillary against our reticular layer? Yes or no? Actually, yes. Okay? So giving you a distinction between your papillary and your reticular. So when we refer to areolar connective tissue, what are the main functions of areolar? Because we know that papillary is for toughness and strength. What do you think is the main purpose of areolar type of connective tissue? Not just in the skin, but in any other types of tissue that is made up of areolar connective tissue. So areolar is more concerned for support, cushioning, what else? Defense, what else? Fluid balance. Okay, so very different function from your reticular type of connective tissue. So again, we have here our epidermis. This is the beginning of our dermis, divided into two sections. We have our papillary, which is made up of areolar connective tissue, and our reticular layer, which is made up of dense, irregular connective tissue. Okay? Now, apart from those layers, you also have to take note that the dermis will contain sensory receptors, your Meissner's and your Pacinian corpuscles. How are we going to differentiate it from our Merkel cell? What is Merkel cell again? It's a mechanoreceptor responsible for light touch. And where is your Merkel cell located? What layer? In the epidermis. Basal layer. And it's more abundant in what part of the body? Fingertips. Okay? So we go first, Meissner's corpuscle. So elliptical structures located superficially within the dermal papillae. So it's numerously found in the fingertips, palms, and sole. Light touch or low frequency stimuli against skin temporarily deform their shape. So it's encapsulated. At the same time, they are mainly found abundant. This is your keyword. Hairless portions of the skin. Where? Lips, fingertips, palms, soles, nipples, and external genitalia. In comparison to your Pacinian corpuscles, they are more located deeper part of the dermis. Sometimes you are unable to really appreciate your Pacinian because they tend to go deeper. They can be seen in the subcutaneous or hypodermis. Okay, so it's an important sensory receptor now for pressure, vibration, and touch. So compare the two. The ones that is located deep the dermis or even in the hypodermis will be your Pacinian corpuscles. While your Meissner's corpuscles, they will be more located, what? Dermal papilla. Okay, practice, identify. Meissner's or Pacinian? Meissner's. Okay, this one, location of your Pacinian, deeper dermis to hypodermis. So in summary, this is how you are going to study for your dermis, divided into two layers, papillary and your reticular. So we go hypodermis. So I highlighted it there. It's not part of the skin. But at some point, it is also the same as of your papillary. It's made up of an areolar connective tissue that will mainly function in the binding of your dermis, of the skin, to the underlying structure. So apart from areolar connective tissue, there are also a lot of adipose cells found in your hypodermis. So, having said adipose cells, what do you think will be the main function of these adipose cells in the hypodermis? What's the purpose of adipose cells here in the hypodermis? Number 1, skin mobility. Number 2, insulation. And number 3, it can act as a shock absorber. Okay, so those functions, mobility, insulation, and shock absorber. Okay? So we go now to accessory structures of the skin. So I only highlighted hair, sebaceous, and sweat gland because we will no longer discuss the nail. Okay, so -1 to study. I don't know if it's included in the lecture, but in the lab, no longer. Hair, sebaceous, and sweat gland only. So we start with hair. So it's an elongated keratinized structure that forms within epidermal invaginations and will be known as your hair follicle. So hair can be present in all areas of the body except for the following: palms, soles, lip, glans penis, clitoris, and labia minora. Heavily distributed on the following areas: your scalp, eyebrows, axilla, and your external genitalia. So we go further and deeper in our discussion. So when we refer to hair, there are two main structures: the shaft and the root. Okay, so shaft will be the hair projecting from the surface, while the root, definitely from the word root, it is the one that will be embedded in the skin. So hair is divided into 3 particular structures, okay, which analogy same as that of a pencil. So the innermost layer will be represented by your medulla, the middle layer will be your cortex, and the outermost layer will be the cuticle. Practice. Identify letter A. This is longitudinal section of the hair, particularly scalp. A. What's A? Medulla. Okay, so medulla is actually absent in thin hair, and it will occupy the core of the hair. So it's the innermost layer. It will mainly consist of dead and disintegrating vacuolated cells. What about B? Cortex. Cortex will be the thickest part of the 3. And it is the one that will surround your medulla. So it will contain your packed dead and keratinized cells and will be loaded with melanosomes. That is why it looks a little bit of brownish in color. So definitely your letter C will represent your cuticle. So this is the thinnest layer of the hair. It transforms into flattened cells and will synthesize a lot of your keratin. Okay? So it contains also dead, flattened but heavily keratinized cells. So that's the longitudinal section. We're looking at cross-section this time. So are we able to identify those layers? Yes. The medulla, the cortex, and the thinnest layer represented by your cuticle. Okay? And you also have your epithelial sheath, which is divided into two portions. You have the internal and the external sheath. So the hair follicle, we go now with hair follicle. So take note, this is the hair follicle. Okay? Here. So the hair follicle is considered as a sac. So it will contain the hair that we have previously identified. It is actually a downgrowth of the dermis and will be contiguous with the epithelium. So the hair follicles will undergo cyclic activity. That is otherwise known as your hair growth and loss. Okay? So each hair is enclosed with two epithelial sheaths, as I have mentioned. You have your external and your internal root sheath. So what's the main importance? Sheath plus hair root equivalent to the formation of hair follicle. Okay? So this is that portion over here. Okay? That's the longitudinal section. This is the cross section. So again, the sheath is actually divided into two portions, internal and external root sheath. Now, other structures of the hair, we have the bulb, the dermal papilla, and the arrector pili. Okay? So as you go deeper, looking at the hair microscopically, or hair follicle, it will expand to form the bulb. Okay? This is the bulb. The bulb is made up of different types of cells. Okay? So the base of the bulb, this is the base. The base of the bulb is actually made up of your dermal papilla. So it's almost the same as how you describe it in the dermal papilla of the skin, invaginations. Okay, so these are invaginations. And they mainly contain progenitor cells. Okay, so progenitor cells meaning they allow the cells to rejuvenate the dermal papilla. They also will contain the capacity for wound healing. Okay, this dermal papilla. So within the hair bulb, surrounding your dermal papilla are unspecialized cells. That's the second layer. That is your matrix or matrical cells. Now, matrical cells are otherwise known as germ cells, and they will function in the growth of the hair follicle and subsequently becoming the hair. Now, what about the dermal sheath? Okay? The dermal sheath, these are the progenitor cells that will replace your dermal papilla. Okay? So, the process of hair follicle will be categorized into three phases. What are the phases of hair cycle? Anagen. What's the next? Catagen. And telogen. Okay? So, if I say shedding of the hair, what phase? Anagen, catagen, or telogen? Telogen. Okay, look at the description. Regression of the hair bulb. Catagen. Okay, for shedding. For growing, what phase? Anagen. So basically, the resting or dormant phase is represented by telogen. Okay? Please take note, these might be asked in your exams. Now we go arrector pili muscle. So the arrector pili muscle has an attachment to two particular structure. Hair follicle and where do you think is the other? Or what is the other structure? So it will attach, the arrector pili will attach itself to the hair follicle and adjacent dermis. So your arrector pili is a very good example of what type of muscle?
Smooth.
Huh? Smooth muscle. Okay? So what's the main purpose of arrector pili? Huh? So we say smooth muscle, it has the ability to contract. So contraction of the arrector pili allows the straightening of the hair and will secrete what? A sinus of what gland? Oh, what gland? Sebaceous gland. Okay? So, the contraction of the muscle has a role in cold temperatures, which causes the hair to orient vertically. Okay? So this is how the arrector pili functions mainly. Okay? So review. This is your sebaceous gland. What is the morphology of this gland? Ala. What is the morphology of this gland? Huh? Letter B. Give type of secretion. This is a very favorite question in your glandular epithelium. Do not forget because you will keep on encountering these questions when you are dealing with other organ tissues because they are always part of other organ tissues. Na. And the bell will ding, 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 ding. Move. You have no answer. What is the morphology? It's a branched acinar gland. What type of secretion? What are the different types of secretion? So this is a very good example of holo. When you say holo, what's descriptive of holocrine secretion? The entire cell will be destroyed in order for the secretion to be released. And what is being released here? Sebum, which is fatty and oily. Okay? So your sebaceous gland basically covers the entire body and is responsible for the secretion of sebum. In comparison to sweat glands, take note, you have two types of sweat glands. You have your eccrine and you also have, what's the other one?
Apocrine.
Apocrine. So the morphology for both coiled tubular glands. Okay, so what type of secretion? Is there already for eccrine? Merocrine. So how does merocrine function? Via letter E. Starts with E, ends with S. Exocytosis. Okay? So, apart from sweat glands, what other tissues follow merocrine secretion? Apart from sweat glands. During their SGD, you have so many things to answer. No, pero when we're trying to review, you're no longer able to answer. Salivary glands,
Glands.
you have your sweat glands,
Meron ako lang.
pancreatic, acinar cells. Also. Okay, we have your merocrine gland secretion.
Pato.
Meron ako.
Will the
Meron ako.
will the cells remain intact for merocrine? Yes. So apocrine, which is another type of your sweat gland, mostly found in the axilla, mons pubis, perianal region, and is way larger in comparison to your eccrine. Okay? So here, we can compare our eccrine sweat glands against our apocrine. So the individual glands are described as stratified cuboidal with smaller lumen for eccrine, while in apocrine, only simple cuboidal with larger lumen. So both of these glands can be found in what layer? Dermis of the skin.
Pasar sa board.
So another picture to
Ayan.
compare the two. Again, lining epithelium of eccrine, stratified cuboidal with narrower lumen. So your apocrine lined by simple cuboidal, wider lumen. Okay. Letter A, identify. Apocrine. Give the lining epithelium. Simple cuboidal epithelium. Identify B. Eccrine. Okay. And then give the lining epithelium. Stratified cuboidal epithelium. I will no longer read this one. You just kindly take note where these particular glands are found in the body. Okay? So do you have any questions? So, the last slide, you kindly go to your respective SGD room and then view the slides this morning. Okay, so thank you.
Certified cuboidal.
Please, airdrop ito may iPad.